SkyCity is facing numerous investigations down under. In this episode, the chairman explains what he's doing about its gambling problems.
And there was absolutely some complacency. And we were not immune to that, particularly in Adelaide. Well, we are yet to, I would say we are probably be paying a fine. Someone said to me when I first started in a business, it's not rocket science, Julian. And it's not. Like, these things are solvable things, they are not unsolvable problems.
It's Monday the 30th of October and you're watching Markets with Madison. SkyCity is one of the more controversial stocks in New Zealand. The valuation of the gambling and hospitality business is down 30% in the past year and by 50% over the past 5 years. It fell 13% in one day when it announced it could have its gambling licence here suspended over a customer complaint. It's also facing an anti-money laundering investigation in Australia. The chairman, Julian Cook, admits many mistakes have been made. We had a chat after its annual shareholder meeting. Julian, thanks for doing this. Good to see you.
Thank you, pleasure.
There's a lot that I want to cover off with you today, but first I want to talk about SkyCity more broadly. And you seem to be in this constant cycle of your casino licences being at risk, investigations by regulators, as a result of that, possible material penalties. Do you think that that says more about the regulatory onslaught and environment, or more about SkyCity's operations to date?
Look, I think it probably talks to, there's been a definite change in regulation, particularly around financial crime over the last 6-7 years. And obviously right throughout the casino sector in Australia, but also here, because like casinos have been caught short on that. People did not see that move happening, and there was absolutely some complacency. And we were not immune to that, particularly in Adelaide, and we are working ourselves out of that situation right now, and there's a lot of work going into that. But when I look fundamentally at the SkyCity business across New Zealand and across Australia, actually the operations are good, the people are good, and so I think the business has got a good future ahead of itself, but there is absolutely a period for the next several years of intense focus on lifting up financial crime and our host responsibility practices to another level and another level of sophistication. Obviously,
mistakes have been made in this business. Can you rattle off some of those decisions that you would classify as mistakes?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, I think probably the biggest issue was just not seeing the change in the attitude of regulators in Australia. And also not seeing the change in the landscape around financial crime. So certainly within the junket business, which was formerly part, we used to partake of, we do not anymore, we will not anymore. That was something which through the 2010s really sort of reared its head, and just general sophistication in financial crime and money laundering through that period was increasing. Now the counterfactual to that is through, right through the 2010s, we had, regular audits from Austrac, regular independent audits of our Adelaide property, all of which came up clean. But I think what we really missed was stepping back from those and going, is the landscape really changing? Are we really happy with what's actually happening in this place? We might have reports which say everything are okay, but are we really happy?
That sounds like an admission of fault in the Adelaide division, is it?
Yep. I don't think one can deny that, yeah.
Even though the investigation hasn't been completed, you're admitting that there absolutely was wrongdoing and you're probably going to have to pay penalties.
We took a provision for a fairly large amount of money at the full year, so I think that's a pretty clear signal on our view on that.
But penalties and an admission of fault are two different things, so are you admitting that there was fault here?
Well, we are yet to, I would say we are probably be paying a fine. We are yet to strike a final agreement with Austrac, but if we do, it will most likely include admissions of such nature.
On host responsibility rules, you mentioned today that there wasn't complete adherence with those rules in your New Zealand casinos, which is what led to that customer complaint. Can you give me some more colour on what wasn't followed?
Well, I won't be able to give you a whole lot of detail because we've obviously there's a complaint before the Gambling Commission, but generally what I could say is there was a system which we were using which was helping to pick up people staying for long stay within the casino. I mean, I would add it is a facial recognition technology system. It is one of the world leading within the gaming sector systems out there. We have a lot of interest in people coming and looking at this system. It is new, it is something we have invested a lot of money into. Obviously it has had some teething problems, which has been disappointing, but it certainly wasn't for lack of trying or investment that we had this system in there. So that has been the thing which has been picked up, which has not been great, as we say, has been fixed, and we'll continue to keep working on those things.
Do you expect more customer complaints to potentially arise out of that then?
Oh, look, I could never say never, but we're sort of not expecting it at the moment.
Do you know who's responsible for those previous mistakes? Do they still work in the business?
Oh, look, I'm not gonna.
I'm not asking you for their names by any means. I wouldn't ask for that. But are they still operating in the business? Have you found out anybody who was potentially involved?
Well, I think, look, there are people within the business in Adelaide who were there through that period. Equally, there are quite a lot of people who aren't, and obviously this has been a subject which the board has been naturally quite focused on and asking exactly the same questions which you are, to which the answer is there's no, these things don't happen with a single person going, I'm going to do something which I knowingly know is completely wrong. And I mean, if it was that simple, it would be great because then we could find that person and deal with them. It's not like that, it's a system-wide issue. And as I said in the AGM previously, we were asked the question by one of the shareholders, are you happy with the people who are still working in the business? And I'd have to say it's absolutely a question which the board has turned its mind to quite extensively. There has been turnover within New Zealand and within Australia since that time. And actually we are very comfortable when we look at what people are doing, what their focus is, the way where they've responded to the to the actions being taken against us, and we see positive things happening. Yeah, doesn't excuse the past, but what we see today is good.
Are any members of the board or members of the executive worried about personal liability at all? Because ASIC has shown that it's not above suing executives.
Well, you're absolutely right. Most of the board are new, so myself and Chad would actually be the longest standing members on the board now, and we would have commenced in mid-2021, actually around the same month that Austrac commenced investigation in Adelaide.
As you say, you're new and there's been a sort of clean out of the board and executive team under your leadership. What are you doing at the board table to deal with, I guess you could say, SkyCity's reputation problem?
Look, what do I think? Someone said to me when I first started in a business, it's not rocket science, Julian. And it's not. Like, a lot of what we've got to do is actually fairly basic. It requires a focus and an application to the areas that really matter. The areas that really matter for us now, and actually they will always really matter, but particularly proportionally they probably matter more now, would be risk. It would be control of risk within the business, it would be control of financial crime, it would be host responsibility, health and safety, although that's actually pretty good here, but there are still things which need to be worked on. And so the changes, when you look at what we've done to really focus in on that sort of multi-level in a way, firstly you start at the board, so board composition. So if you look at the composition of the board, which we've brought on over the last couple of years, you'll see a very strong focus around risk. We've got some good gaming experience, so people who know how things work and people who know where to look for trouble. So that's very good, and then we've seen that in the couple of directors who have come on recently as well, just a continuation of that, particularly someone like Donna Cooper, who went through a similar kind of transformation at TSB, so she has lived and breathed that kind of journey around systems and culture. It goes to the way the board governance structures are set up, so we now have a dedicated risk and compliance committee. As Kate said earlier, all it really does is focuses on risk, financial crime, host responsibility and health and safety, and it has a dedicated focus on that. It goes through to how the management team are set up and structured, so we have a new CRO with the business who is fantastic and is really helping us lift up and will help us and continue to lift up those sort of practices. And it also goes to how we check and audit ourselves over time. So we have a much increased cycle of independent experts, auditors, assurance, who will report to the board, who are commissioned by the board to check key things around financial crime performance, and host responsibility so that we know at all levels what is going well, what is not going well, and we can form plans to fix the things which need to be fixed.
And what do you expect or hope that that might do to investor confidence in your stock? Because investors are ditching it left, right and centre. It's down 30% year to date, 50% over the past 5 years. Institutional investors that hold your stock are consistently having to explain to their clients why they still do. Yep. I've been in rooms where that's happened. Bank managers in Australia don't want to bank.
I've had to
gaming
explain
companies.
To them as well. Yep.
So what do you expect any or all of that will do for investor confidence in your stock, if anything?
Well, hopefully it will return it over time, but as I say before, it's just we've just got to stick to the basics and get these things right. Like, these things are solvable things. They are not unsolvable problems. They are completely within our control to do. It just requires application focus, the right kind of people and the right kind of investment behind it, and a bit of time. Like, these things take time. And then once we have those things dealt with, I think we can actually, we'll always need to be on them, but then we can look more, actually, what is the actual fundamental underlying business? And the fundamental underlying business is good. We look at the sites we have, and we've got some great licenses and great locations. We're obviously in Auckland today. We will have a convention centre opening up in 2025, which is going to be an amazing addition to this whole precinct and to New Zealand more generally, when we are out at the moment booking up conference space for 2025 and beyond, and we are getting some great conferences signed on the line coming to this country. So that'll be good for the country, good for Auckland, good for us. Quite possibly there will be regulation of online gaming in New Zealand, which I think is very good from both a host responsibility perspective, but also from actually a government perspective in terms of collecting tax. And we will pursue that opportunity as well. So I think there's a good opportunity there. On
that online gambling licence, do you expect this new national government will approve one? Because the previous national government was pretty friendly to SkyCity.
Well, they announced in their election manifesto effectively that they would look to regulate online gaming within New Zealand.
Do you think they will?
Well, that's for them to do that.
But obviously you're going to lobby for it, are you not?
Well, look, we would like it, but genuinely, we look at online gaming in New Zealand, it's a Wild West at the moment. It is one of the only OECD countries where there is no regulation of online gaming. So what that means is you have every man and his dog in this country operating, marketing to people. There is no problem gambling, no host responsibility protections for people at all. There's no licensing or checking of who these operators are. And actually there's no tax collected by the government. So it just seems odd.
You're a former investment banker. You understand market thematics. And this question is going to sound rude, but I genuinely don't mean for it to. With all respect to you, Julian, and your 4,500 staff, why let this business continue to survive? Why not just let gaming and gambling be a sunset industry, carve off your casino licenses, sell them off, and just stick to hospitality?
Well, I think ultimately the core of this business is actually people coming here and having fun and gaming. I mean, for some people, gaming's not their thing, but there are a lot of people for whom gaming is actually fun and enjoyable activity, and you couple that with a night out at the restaurant and maybe stay at one of our hotels, and they very much enjoy that. And
why do you call it gaming, not gambling?
Well, you can call it whatever you want.
Okay. Is that intentional?
It's semantics. I don't think so, no.
Okay. Do you gamble?
Well, I'm not allowed anymore, actually.
In this role, you're not allowed to?
No, well, it would be, if the chairman walked in and suddenly hit the jackpot and walked out with a big bag of cash, it wouldn't be a good look, would it?
Because the house always wins, right?
Well, not the chairman, unfortunately.
But did you gamble previously? Was it something that you dabbled in, if you don't mind me asking?
I've absolutely dabbled, yeah. It's a lot of fun, actually.
It's a pretty big job ahead for a new CEO. Where are you going to get them from?
Well, we will see. Obviously, we have our feelers out. I actually look at it and go, I actually think this is a pretty interesting opportunity, and 10 years younger, and maybe I'll be having a crack too. You've got a business which, yes, this had some issues, but most of those have been surfaced and flushed out. And there are actually some quite good people coming into the business and good plans afoot to, work on these things over time. So as we were talking about before, in time, we will get on top of these issues, and we will then be back to, okay, well, what's the base business, which is opening up the convention centre, it's online gaming, and just seeing the continued growth in what we do, and things should go well.
And just quickly on the New Zealand International Convention Centre, you've already spoken about it already. Are you going to take Fletcher to court over the costs and delays in that project?
Look, as I said during the AGM, they are performing very well. Like right now, they are actually doing a really good job. They have a great team on there. They've got altogether over 1,400 people a day, I think, on site. So they're making really good progress. Typically, they are on or ahead of schedule, which is really important. It's something that we watch closely. And the main focus for us is let's get that thing open and get some people in it.
Speaking of court, what about that car park concession? Do you regret selling that?
Well, I didn't sell them.
Do you think it was a regretful decision, whoever did?
Well, we're certainly regretting it now. Look, that shouldn't have happened, as I said in the AGM. It was one of those sort of financing style deals where you think you're going to make a few cents here, a few basis points here, but what you pay for it is a bunch of kind of unrealised risks at the time, which we are fully realising now.
What do you expect the outcome of that court fight to be?
Look, we've just got to wait for. We've got a court case with a judgment due, and we've just got to wait to see what that says. So fingers crossed.
It's Macquarie that's taken you to court over that, isn't it?
That is right.
Didn't you used to work for them?
I did indeed. Yes.
That's a bit mean, isn't it?
Well,
For them to come after you like that.
It's the way they work, and not a easy counterparty to work with.
Well, you have a big job ahead of you, so I really appreciate you taking the time to chat today, Julian. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
I don't know about you, but that was the most frank I think I've ever seen a chairman. And believe it or not, he actually said he enjoyed the interview at the end of it. I'd love to know what you thought of Julian's answers and if you think he's making the right decisions for SkyCity's future. This was a very highly requested interview, so I'm looking forward to your feedback. Now go put your money to work. Thanks for watching Markets with Madison, the New Zealand Herald show for interested investors. If you want to stay up to date with financial markets, click the subscribe button below and you can watch our other episodes here. Stay up to date with all the business news and numbers as they land on nzherald.co.nz.